Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you as usual. But today, we have two guests. One that's programmed, that is Greg. Well, I'll tell you about that after. Let's go ahead and get right into the show. Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. Michael Rudnin, visit today. Quick share, then listening from away when I can. See ya tomorrow. But yeah, when you can, still drop those lines in. We love your input. We love your input, guys. Anyway, we are going to have a wonderful show today. Hey, what's going on with El Señor Presidente? What's happening? Well, we all know what's happening, but it doesn't matter because this thing is all over. Linda E, welcome aboard, my friend. Welcome aboard, my friend. Let me make sure that all our shares are starting to get done. Let's make sure our great coffee party is done. I think they are online. We'll make sure. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get busy and start with the program because we have two interviews. One of them was pretty substantial as well. So he's hiding in the White House, according to Bridge MCP. Bruce Pollard. Yo, let's have a recount. Okay, Bruce, we're going to have a recount. Anyhow, let's get busy and talk about what the program is about today. Title of the show. Let me get it on the screen. Title, is that on the screen? Yes, it's on the screen. Title of the show today, Greg Palast on how voter rolls activists saved Biden, the new Trump con, and more. Joe Biden should thank Greg Palast and other voter roll activists for the victory. Trump has a new con, folks, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to play that as well. We're going to see what that con is. So, what's up for topics today? First topic, numero uno, my daughter, Ashley Willies. She's going to drop in on us to talk to her dad. You know what? My daughter had a stroke in when was it? In January. And I am so damn proud of what she has done thus far. She makes me look. You guys know I am a fanatic of Medicare for All. I try to push the programs because we don't know who's going to get sick. We don't know who's going to have that fate that something goes wrong. We don't know how it's going to happen. She's a medical student. She's up the gazoo in medical bills. And let me tell you, though, the power that she has shown over what has happened over the years, folks, it's monumental. And I told her, I begged her to be on the show today. I said, just come and tell people how you're doing after the stroke. Because I had her on the screen right after the stroke. And I got her in and I said, girl, come on and do it for your daddy. You going to do it for your daddy? You going to do it for your daddy? Of course she's going to do it for her daddy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome my daughter, Ashley Willies. Ashley Willies. How are you doing today, my daughter?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fine. Oh, you think your dad's crazy for that kind of intro, huh?
That was so much.
Anyway, welcome to Politics Done Right, Ashley Willies. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Well, look here. You had a stroke back in January,
January.
and I mean, I have to say, Linda E says hi. Bridge MCP says hello, Ashley. So let me tell you, I am so proud of how you came through with the stroke. You're still going through quite a few things. Why don't you tell us a little bit, a short thing about how it happened, and secondly, how are you really doing right now?
Oh, all right. Okay, here we go. So I had a stroke, I will say, weirdly, right after my grandmother had a stroke. And it happened because I'm so young, there's something called a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It just means that instead of a clot forming, you essentially burst a vein or burst a vessel. That's what happened to me. I was born with something um, called a malformation. It's when my arteries and my veins form what I call a noodle ball.
Mm-hmm.
in my head, and the noodle ball has really thin walls. And if you're stressed out, you're running, doing anything that raises your blood pressure, it can pop. And that's what happened to me.
And you are a med student, so we know you're under pressure, my dear. A hell of a lot of pressure. But
Yeah.
hey, Bruce says texting Meredith to connect if she can. Your friend.
Oh man.
Hey, thanks, Bruce. That's cool. Anyhow, so Ashley, so after the stroke, I mean, let me just tell you, folks, and this is right. I think we should all give our folks kudos on the things, right? My daughter, after she had the stroke, I went up there and she pulled me around her campus because she 4 days after a stroke, she could barely walk. She was blind, 50% blind, and she couldn't take light. And she drove me to her school. I mean, I drove her to the school because she wanted to make sure that she wasn't going to lose everything. Now, how much time did you lose, and are you still on schedule to get out as a fourth year?
So I am super, 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 super blessed and lucky. I am going to be graduating on time because, at least at my institution, we have this 2 month, I want to say kind of like sliding
Mm-hmm.
timeline where it's built in to our curriculum. So let's say you have to take a board exam and you want it and you need more time. They have these 2 months that some students take. It just so happened that I was not one of the students who was using those 2 months. And because I had the stroke, weirdly, right at the end of run rotation and at the beginning of another, like it couldn't have come at a cleaner break of a line. I just took that specific 2 month rotation off because, I couldn't see, two, I couldn't stay awake past 6 p.m. And I just couldn't think. I couldn't really, I wasn't the normal
And
Ashley.
the
I was
headaches were terrible. I remember
headaches,
that
and then like
well.
I was out like a light all the time, wobbly. It wasn't fun, and trying to take care of patients, it's a liability. Because if I'm at 100, why in the world would I go and take care of somebody else? Like that's irresponsible. So, the school came in and was like, sit down, heal, come back later, and so that's what happened.
So you
And
kind of took it slow for 2 months, but I'm not going to forget to tell you that she still went to, even that period that they told her to stay home, she went to school to do one class. I don't, you know.
yes, I did. So we have an ethics course, excuse me, an ethics course, which if you are in any health profession, nursing, PT, pharmacy, no matter what, you had to take this course in the United States. And I wasn't, it's like it's done over one semester at my school. I wasn't about to like make that up in my fourth year because we usually do it during my third year. And it requires like discussions and breaking down actual legalities, and I just wasn't, I don't want to mess with it. And so against my dean's advice, I showed up because it was 1 hour in the evening a week, including, oh, that's right, it was 4 hours a week, but it was in one evening. And I felt that I was able to do that.
Well, that was good because it kind of kept you also on schedule. Now, Ashley, tell us about how are you feeling with regards to how do you feel with regards to how any deficits? What are your implications with the stroke?
Yeah. So what's really cool and terrible is that we always, at least I do in my exams, we always talk about patients that have like deficits after a stroke. Like, oh, they have a stroke, so then one side of their face is down, or oh, they have a stroke, so they can't move one side, they can't walk. I was super lucky, and I lost 50%, and then I gained about 30% of that back, 30 or more. I have a very much a blind spot, but I can majority see everything. Very, 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 very lucky and excited about that. Um, because my treatment for my noodle
AVM,
ball in my head
right?
required radiation, which is weird. You're like, radiation, you don't have cancer. Well, this particular noodle ball kind of acts like a cancer because it grows exponentially without any checks and balances of the body. So because of that, we treat with radiation and it collapses on itself, and hopefully disintegrates and my body just like gets rid of it. That procedure was done about 5, 6 months ago. And I was told that, as time goes on, I may get more deficits, which means you lose ability to do something, or I may regain the deficits that I had already incurred earlier this year. Now I have weakness in my foot, weakness on my left arm. And when I say weakness, meaning like I can't do with force as much as I would like to. My coordination is off on the left side. You can't tell now, but I have a little bit of a droop on my left side on my face. So if I sound a little woozy, that's why. I'm not inebriated. I just had a stroke. So that's
Okay,
all.
look, Tank 28 wants to know what discipline are you going into?
Okay, so I'm going into family medicine. And so in med school, family medicine is seen as like,
Actually, I'm sorry, it was Breach MCP who asked that. Sorry, Breach. Go ahead.
oh, so it was like, it seems it's like the catch-all specialty. However,
Right.
I actually really liked it because it's primary care and it's kind of what we need right now. And people really be sleeping on family care, on family medicine, which is funny because anytime I go to a specialty, let's say it's like ear, nose, and throat, ENT doctor, or let's say you go to a surgeon, the only way you can get to an ENT or to a surgeon, besides through the emergency room, is through your primary care doctor. Because they're the ones who know you the best, and they are the ones who are supposed to foster this relationship with you and with your health. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I'm going into family medicine. I get to see people from the cradle to the grave, and I'm really excited
That is
about
great.
it.
Well, from the time you were growing up and talking about being a doctor, you always said you wanted to take care of the underprivileged. You wanted to do all those things. So I mean, I think that's good. And even though you don't want to say, sometimes things that happen in your life can be a blessing in disguise. It actually gives you you've always had empathy, but it even gives you another level of empathy in dealing with other things that people may go through.
I mean, I have so many stories. I'll just tell a quick 30-second story about a patient I had last week. This patient apparently needed chemo and radiation and wasn't used to radiation. They've only had chemo in the past, and they're like, I don't know what radiation is, and they're freaked out about it. I actually could tell them what it would feel like. And that was super weird for me, but really cool because if you don't go through it, you can say what other people have told you, but going through it personally is a different kind of vibe.
Absolutely. So, well, Ashley, I told you when you came on, we don't want to talk politics here. You're a med student and all that kind of stuff, so I can understand that. So, but I just wanted to bring you on because after talking to you today earlier, I just said, God, I'm so damn proud of how you've come through this and coming through this, and even as the deficits come, you just live over it. So, look, thank you very much for being a part or being here on Politics Done Right, and you have a wonderful day. We'll talk a little later, beautiful. Love you.
Bye.
All right, take care. Well, folks, that is my daughter. I took host privileges to go ahead and do that, but I was talking to her earlier, and I said, you know what? Why don't you come on? I have another guest, but I got some time that let's go ahead and talk and let people see what the reality looks like with somebody can have stroke and still get away with it. Let's see. Egberto, the sound is way off to video. Oh, really? Both on YouTube and I am sorry to hear that. Is it still that way now that I've changed screen, or is it better? Let me know. Ay, ay, ay. Does she follow Q? I swear you said that yesterday. No, 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 no. She does not follow Q. Thank you very much. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get busy with the program. The other topic that we are going to talk about, folks, is, and let me get that screen up. Let's go ahead and get that screen up. The other topic we're talking about today is Trump takes supporters to the cleaners as he cons them, knowing he has no presidency path. Most importantly, he's putting the country at risk. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll take it on the other side. Trump University, stiffing people when they work for you, not paying people when they work for you. Trump steaks, Trump water, Trump all kind of stuff that has always been just nothing but a con. And you know what? He's running the biggest con. Trump taking supporters to the cleaners. He's taking his supporters now to the cleaners with this fallacy about somehow there's a path for him to get the presidency. The biggest con And a lot of people are going for it because that's 71 million people that are following him. That's 71 million people that voted for him. It's a cash machine. Check this out and then we'll take it on the other side.
The Trump silence is the Trump concession speech. He cannot put his loss into words. That will never happen. But he doesn't have to. Even when Donald Trump was in the hospital with the coronavirus, he was issuing video statements to rally his followers. Donald Trump knew when he was in the hospital with coronavirus that he had to continue speaking directly to his voters in his own voice on camera because he knew that silence would have been surrender. Kanye West has conceded, but Donald Trump is still playing his game, the game called other people's money. And he is playing that game in a nonstop barrage of emails to his supporters and to people who are not his supporters with subject lines that sound like the lyrics of sad love songs, like, I need you right now. And then there's, we need you now more than ever. And there's, what's it all about? And there's the totally unbelievable, here's the truth. That's actually the subject line of a Trump email. Here's the truth. And there's the most direct one of all, which is, can you chip in? Which answers the question that the other Trump email, what's it all about, asks. It is about raising money for Donald Trump. That is what everything Donald Trump does for the rest of his life will be about. It's what everything he did previously in his life has always been about. Donald Trump is running a hustle on the most gullible voters in history, asking them to send him money to fight the results of an election that has already been decided. And the only people in America who could fall for that are Trump voters.
Record. Donald Trump today is still sending out many emails and texts to supporters. As we've been discussing, they're requesting money that they say are for lawsuits, but the money isn't going there. You need to know this. The fine print reveals 60% of these newly requested donations are for Save America, which is the new PAC that will fund, under the law, these things are regulated, the ex-presidency activities. The other 40% goes right to the RNC after a donor gives over $5,000. Only then does any of the money go to what is called the recount account.
The reason he's doing it is because he has no income. And you would see that if he would turn over his tax returns. There's no income there, right? So he doesn't have the apprentice making $65 million a year. Most of his assets are underperforming. They're non-performing assets. The few that he has doesn't cover the big costs. So he's going to use this like he used the Trump Foundation as a slush fund.
But you want to know what's the most sinister part about this? Do you want to know what's the most evil part about this? Notice how very few Republicans who also know the truth, who also know that the president has no path to the presidency, they are acquiescing to the con. Why? A lot of that money goes to the RNC. Why? They don't want to lose that 71 million people base because they can go ahead and bleed them dry. They can go ahead and get their cash. They just have to say, hey, they're trying to impeach me. Oh, they're trying to take away my presidency. And there you go. You send him what he wants. Like that preacher, like that evangelical preacher who knows the buttons to push to take that money, your hard-earned money, away from you. Think about it. Trump taking supporters to the cleaners as he cons them, knowing he has no path to the presidency. Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. Anyhow, I want you to also listen to this one that's coming up, and we'll take it on the other side. For those who don't understand that progressives brought out a lot of people, a lot of young people, and they weren't voting specifically for, in some altruistic manner for Biden. They wanted many times something else. But they voted the interest of the country. They voted the interest of humanity. And check out what these young women had to say. I was so impressed by their thought process. Check this out.
Here's a few young women and students who have been here since the beginning. So, did you think this was going to happen?
I didn't really have any predictions, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done. But I'm really happy that there's not a neo-fascist in the White House, and I think this gives me hope that there's still some semblance of democracy in this country.
Are you concerned that President Trump is saying he's going to challenge this and he may not lead?
I think the reality is that as much as regardless of the amount of fascism that he will try to put into this country, we will not accept it as a democracy. We are a democratic country, and at the end of the day, he has been fired from his job. We are a democracy, and the people will always have the power regardless of what he and his small pea brain would like to think.
Really?
Yeah.
You seem pretty happy.
Yeah, I am happy because although, yes, Biden and Kamala have their shortcomings, this means so much for so many people, and the fact that they even want to place value on human lives, that already says enough.
Those are young people that likely would have sat out this election. There was a lot of work, there's a lot of activism that was put out there by progressives to get that increase in people coming out. As you can see, Donald Trump maximized his base. 71 million people thought President Trump was the person to elect, the person that caged kids, the person that holds women by their private parts, the person that has had many wives, the person that have said, I don't care about your health care, the person that have said, you know what, I'm going to take your money and give it to rich people because they are more deserving than you are, the person that is going to pollute the drinking water that you have, the person that says, you know what, I don't care about regulations. You know why? Because if whichever friend that I have that needs a change in the regulations, irrespective of what it does, I'm going to do it for them. 71 million people were fooled into supporting that. Now, folks, I want to take you now to our next interview. This is Greg Palast. If you want to know one of the people that are instrumental in having us win Wisconsin, Democrats win Wisconsin, as well as winning Georgia, he sued Georgia to stop the voter roll shenanigans, and he sued in Wisconsin and made sure that the people weren't removed in Wisconsin, Michigan, and other places. This is a guy, you've seen him before, but he has some more to say. Greg Palast, let's talk about that. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm here with the one and only Greg Palast again. Greg has a whole lot of new information for us. Greg, election 2020 is over. How are you doing?
How are we doing?
Yes.
Well, I understand we have a new president. If someone would tell the old president, it might help things.
I know.
But look, I wrote a book called How Trump Stole 2020.
Right.
And it was a warning, not a prediction. And I know that there was going to be the big blue wave. Well, it was barely a ripple, and it was real close. And that's not because the voters decide that they just can't get enough of Donald Trump and they need 4 more years. That's not what happened. We really did have just humongous vote shenanigans in America, which cut those totals. And in fact, it's only because we busted some of that. And for example, Wisconsin. Now, if you read my book, you know that Trump won Wisconsin by just 22,000 votes in 16, substantially because they changed the ID laws 2 weeks before that election.
Right.
Which knocked out 50,000 African Americans who didn't have driver's licenses, and 182,000 students who student ID didn't count for voting, even though it's a state photo ID. So it's so. Imagine if the African American and student voters had voted, Hillary would have been won Wisconsin and elected. This time, the Democrats took over in 18. By the way, with all the vote trickery, please note you can't steal all the votes all the time. So the Democrats did win in 18, took over the state, but not the state legislature. State legislature then voted to remove 150-some thousand voters from the voter rolls. Well, they said on grounds that they had moved, but they didn't move. So at least the Board of Elections had suspicions about the list, and then my group, the Palast Investigative Fund, brought in experts. With the state's help, we went through the list, name by name, and found that nearly 100,000 people on the list had not moved from their city. You know, it included, they said Sequana Taylor moved from her city, from Milwaukee, which seemed unlikely. When I talked to her, he said, I didn't move from Milwaukee. I'm a Milwaukee County supervisor. Okay, she moved from Milwaukee, but she was attempting to vote while black. Almost all the people on the list, I mean, almost all of them were either black or students. That's it. In other words, voters of color, and the color is blue. So we busted that. And the Board of Elections said, we are not going to remove these voters. Biden won by 20-some thousand votes. That's it in Wisconsin. If they had removed those voters, there's no way he would have won Wisconsin.
So it's because of the work that you guys did in Wisconsin by putting those people back on the polls. I mean, on the list, that allowed them to actually vote. Now, let me ask you something.
I should say we prevented them from being removed. And
yeah.
And by the way, let's make sure we give credit. You do have a state government, and particularly Mandela Barnes, the African-American lieutenant governor. And by the way, I don't mention his race gratuitously.
I know.
If it weren't for African-American officials in Wisconsin, the lieutenant governor, the county supervisors and elections officials in Milwaukee, African-American, if it weren't for them, and I will say also the elections officials in Madison, they are not African-American, but they're protecting students. In Detroit, African-American officials who, despite the white Democratic leadership of Michigan, which resisted putting purge voters back on the roll, these are the Democrats. Okay.
Why did they resist?
You're asking me to get into the mind of a Democrat. It's a very tight space. I can't necessarily fit in there, so I don't know what's in their brains. But they don't protect the voters of Detroit, that's for sure. Detroit protected the voters of Detroit. I just spoke to the outgoing head of the National Bar Association, which is the African American Lawyers Guild. And they said, look, they gave my books and my information to the voting officials in Detroit, and they worked very hard to save those African-American votes. We also created a website where people who lost their votes in Michigan, lost their votes in Georgia and in North Carolina could look up their names. And by the way, if you're in Georgia, you can still do that. Look up your names and see if you were put on the state's purge list. Now, what is a purge list? It means that they took your name off the voter rolls. And usually they've been doing this on false cockamamie grounds. But of course, they figured out how to target voters of color.
Right.
So what happened is in Michigan, we put up that list, and we had help from Leonardo DiCaprio's website. He hosted our investigative reports short, which I would like everyone to see, really, and pass them around. There's a 1-minute Instagram version on @Leo DiCaprio, or you can go to gregpalast.com, but it's a 1-minute story of the vanished voters of Trump's America, and then a 14-minute film. And you know what? I got, yeah, please do. And there's also a 14-minute version. And at the end, it directs people to re-register. We hope that made, I think it made a difference in Michigan with the other work we were doing, a lot of publicity. Millions, and so far 7 million people have seen those films, especially in those affected states. They got a lot of publicity. So look, it's not Greg Palast running out and making Biden president. That's not, first of all, it's not my job. Okay. My job is to expose things. And if the result is that people get to vote, and if the voters, in this case, the voters actually chose Biden, how about that? The voters got to choose the president. We're not done out of the woods yet. We should discuss
now,
that.
let me ask you a few questions, because this is important. Yes. Let's go back to 2016. Hillary got about 65 million votes, and Trump got about 62 million votes, roughly. Okay, I know it's some instincts there. Now, all along, I said we were going to win, Democrats, that is, in a landslide. And what did I mean by that? I figured Hillary got 65 this time. With all the activism that we had, we may get 5 million more people. We may get 71 million people. That's what I thought Democrats would get. Early on in the election, I thought that Trump was maxed out, but maybe he could pull up 64 million people. That's what I thought. Okay. Now, when I start, we are now at 71, 75. Okay. Meaning he got 71 and she has, and Biden has 75. My question to you, is his 71 all consistent of real people? I can't believe that he was able to find 71 million people that liked him, and in as much as what the polls were saying as well.
Well, I
What are
guess
your thoughts on that?
it depends on your neighborhood. You know what? One thing I've said, I've worked in this the voting game and seeing how games are played. The problem we have in America is not counting people's votes. What we don't have in America is people filing false ballots, either by mail or in person. We just, you know why it's very, very hard to do. You go to jail for 5 years, and
Right.
as organizers have told me, it's really hard to get people to vote once, let alone twice.
Right.
So I'm not worried that Trump somehow padded his numbers. He's got a legitimate 71 million. He brought out his people. If you go into these Trump areas, like when I was at the Trump rally in Macon, Georgia, you see the passion that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They really, you have to understand their emotions, and they're not always pretty emotions, but we need to also tell people who live on, for example, I'm in Los Angeles, I'm in La La Land, and I'm under the Hollywood sign.
Yeah.
And as I've told my friends here, he said, how can we don't understand all these Trump voters. I said, look, if you know more people that voted for Jill in 2016 than you know Trump voters, you're living in a bubble. So we all have our bubbles.
Right.
But you can go to areas, counties. If you look at some of these county numbers of rural areas, you will
9 to 1. 9 to 1.
You'll find 200 to 1, 80 to 1 pro Trump. You can't, it's better to announce that you're a cannibal than to announce that you are a Democrat.
Yes.
In some of these places. So we live in, America is divided into these worlds that don't understand each other. You know that back in 1960, there was no such thing as a red or blue state. Almost every state was divided and up for grabs. This is a new business of kind of
is it geolocation or is it messaging to different areas based on what people do?
The answer is yes. I mean, so it ends up being geo. So for example, and of course, you've got Trump voters. We really look, I'm not Proud Boys, 3%ers, people that use, and basically they're neo-Nazis using violence.
Right.
That's horrendous. And today we were having a discussion, how do we deal with anti-Semitic and racist crap that I get sent to my website and stuff in response to my work. It's ugly. But let's remember that in places like Michigan, you had Hillary Clinton go in and defend NAFTA. Joe Biden voted for NAFTA. He's supposed to be Mr. Working Class, but he sent jobs to Mexico. He sent jobs to China in the Democratic administration, is making China a most favored nation.
Right.
These people, there's a lot of people who feel that they were abandoned by what they consider coastal elites, and they consider coastal elites sneering and looking down on them. And they think that because it's 100% true. I know, I live here. Believe me, the people here are sneering at everyone in Utah. That's just how it works. Now, so I understand that. So I don't doubt that there are 71 million angry people in America who said, we've had it. We don't care how crazy this guy is. We don't care how many kids he puts in a cage. He's punching the elites in the nose. That's how they see it. Now, of course, they've been conned. He is the elite.
Right.
There's no more elite than Donald Trump.
Yes.
A New York hotel owner, casino man. Come on.
Yeah.
So it's a con job. But that's not the point. I understand how the votes he got. The question is, here's the danger from my view. My main work is the votes that they don't let others cast, particularly voters of color. So I told you the GOP legislature voted to remove 159,000 people,
Right.
almost everyone a student or an African-American in Milwaukee, everyone. And on false information. This is an ugly Jim Crow operation. Now, we stopped it in Wisconsin. Biden was the beneficiary of that work. If it was, I'm not going to choose parties for you. In Georgia now, we are very concerned because I have no doubt. I mean, we've measured, our experts went in. Again, they tried the purge. The purge meaning canceling your voter registration. We did an analysis of the list. A report was put out by the ACLU and the Black Voters Matter Fund, which also did our Wisconsin report. And we exposed with the ACLU 198,000 voters wrongly removed. They said that again, that they moved, and included, you can go to our site, you can see on these little films at gregpalast.com, Christine Jordan, Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin, voting at the same voting station 50 years. I filmed her when they threw her out. She's 92. And her granddaughter's crying hysterically. You have this on film. Then we went back to her house, the house that they said she moved out of. There's King's picture on the wall eating dinner at that house. So that's proof that she's been there at least 60 years. And yet they threw her out again and again. And we, at the one voting station, the one area, a couple voting stations right next to each other, Raheem Shabazz, King's cousin, Ashley Jones, who is Latina and African-American mix, Yasmin Bakhtiar, a Muslim immigrant. You're getting the picture. Who's being thrown off? It's brilliant. And unlike Jim Crow tactics, where it was like, remember, George Wallace stood in the schoolhouse door saying, segregation now, segregation forever.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that. So they say, oh, we're for voting rights for everyone of any color. They're very subtle. They're very polite. And then they shaft you using computers to do the Jim Crow trick. So they go from white sheets to spreadsheets. That's the game.
I like that one.
That's the game. And that's what they're doing in Georgia. And that's how they are stealing. And I kid you not, I know that the Democratic Party hates me to say it this way, but I don't care what the Democrats think either. They're stealing. And I think they've stolen the Senate race. I just got information literally before we went on the air here. I just got information on the number of votes that were not counted. Now, I warned you, Egberto,
yes,
don't pick and lick. Now, what do I mean by that? Don't pick a presidential candidate, stick a stamp on an envelope, and mail in your vote. Now, I said, and people were shocked, I cited an MIT study that said 22% of mail-in ballots don't get counted. Well, I was wrong. I just looked at Georgia. 30% of Georgia mail-in ballots that we have found have not been counted, have been rejected. 30%. Now, what does that mean? Democrats were told by some guy, I don't know who the heck he is, Obama something, I don't know what he was. Anyway, he's not an expert in this stuff. But this guy Obama said, mail in your vote, don't worry about it. This guy Biden got up at the debate with Donald Trump and said, don't worry, mail in your vote, it will be counted. Well, Joe, there are tens of thousands of mail-in ballots in African-American areas which were thrown in the garbage. That's official. I'll just give you, let's see.
Are you talking about this last election, 2020?
I'm talking about last Tuesday.
So you're telling me that Biden won by more than the 12,000 he's up at right now?
Way more. And not only that, but if you count the ballots thrown in the garbage, and a lot of voters were shunted to these provisional ballots which weren't counted. But if you just look at the mail-in ballots that weren't counted, Biden walked away with Georgia. Not only that, but in the Senate race, which will control the United States Senate, is up to what are going to be now two runoffs. In
so
Georgia.
you're saying Ossoff would have won?
Ossoff, no. I'm saying Ossoff did win, but they're not counting the votes. One thing I want to find out from the Ossoff campaign, see, because Trump's calling for the recount. There's no recount in the Senate campaign, and I think Ossoff should call for a recount, including a review of every one of those mail-in ballots. Remember, because the Democrats chose to go mail-in, we know that about it didn't happen in Georgia, mainly because the African-American organization said, no, don't mail in your ballot.
Yeah, they said to go vote.
Look,
yeah.
The African-American groups in Atlanta, the most sophisticated voting groups in the United States. This is King's home, right? And they said, do not mail in your ballot unless you really have to. You're frail. You can't wait in line. You're subject to COVID. So, but what we did was, so most African Americans instead voted early. That made the difference. Joe Biden wouldn't be president if it wasn't for a massive turnout in early voting in many states. by the African American community. Now, in Georgia, which is, if the census is honest, and it isn't, but if it were honest, it would show that about this year that they figure Georgia became a white minority state. It's not shocking that a white minority state would turn blue. What's shocking is that it's resisting through trickery.
Right.
So you don't count all these mail-in ballots. I've warned people about mail-in ballots. Now, understand, a mail-in ballot can be rejected because of postage due.
Right.
Because you didn't sign. Signature is the big one. Now, in 16, in which very few people relatively voted by mail. Well, I say relatively, we did have about 40 million mail-in ballots, but mostly, I want to make a distinction, by the way. I don't want to get too technical, but it's actually a distinction that Donald Trump made. I know everyone thinks he's unsophisticated, but he's dumb as a fox. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he made a distinction between mail-in ballots and absentee. There is a big distinction. Mail-in ballots are what we do in the left coast: California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, Colorado, Nevada, and Hawaii. If you're in those states, don't worry about mailing in your vote. It's not great, but it's fairly safe because everyone gets a ballot. The systems are set up for mail-in voting. If in the rest of America, or as Sarah Palin would say, in America, no. The absentee ballots where you have to ask for a ballot is a problem. 1 in 10 voters who ask for a ballot never get them. I'm getting calls from all over Georgia. I never got my absentee. I never got my mail-in ballot. That's one. The second is that when you mail in those ballots, they'll come up with every excuse not to count them. About 1 in 8. Now we know it's about 1 in 3 in Georgia.
Wow.
But 1 in 4. But generally about 1 in 8 ballots, they used a red pen or a pencil instead of black or blue pen. You folded it too many times, the scanners can't read them.
Right.
You're mailing in your ballot, but it's read through a machine. You didn't fill out a bubble correctly. And by the way, it doesn't mean you're dumb. My sister is a lawyer who had her mail-in ballot disqualified because she didn't properly fill in a bubble. Because she can, in California, by the way, you can check if your ballot's been counted.
Right.
Now, so it's all kinds of cockamamie stuff. You registered, and when you registered, you signed your name with a middle initial, and then you sent in your mail-in ballot without the middle initial.
Yeah.
And boom, it's called exact match in Georgia. All these games that they can use to knock out a mail-in ballot. That's why I say never go postal. Thank God that postal voting in Georgia was really cut down because of the African-American leadership saying, don't mail in unless you really have to.
No, we're kind of coming up on time, so I have some important questions here. As far as Georgia is concerned, tell me what's the state of Georgia for the Ossoff and Warnoff race. How do we save it?
Okay, to let the voters choose the Senate instead of the trickery, number one, check your registration. For God's sake, go to vote.org and see if you're still registered. If not, register right away. In Georgia, you have till December 7th. Second, if you really have to mail in a ballot, you can ask for it today. If you don't ask for it this week, you ain't going to get it on time. That's just the truth. And if you don't mail it back at least 2 weeks before the election, forget about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now those are two big things, but especially register to vote. Early voting in Georgia starts December 14. That's what I recommend. Early voting. Bring gloves, bring a mask, bring a bottle of water, and maybe bring 2 lawyers with you.
Now, next question, as far as the voting is concerned, do you think that they're going to try to purge the files again, or you think that's been already done?
Well, they've already done it. They can't do it again for this race.
Okay.
So it's too late for them to purge. Well, I don't trust these guys.
Right.
Legally, they can't do it because within 90 days of a federal election. However, I've seen them do it in Florida in 2000. I caught them doing that.
Right.
But the main thing is getting yourself back on. The problem of being purged is that you don't know it.
Right.
You're a victim of a crime. It's like someone pickpocketed, took your wallet out of your pocket. You didn't know it. Then you go to pay and you're in trouble. So now you go to vote, you're purged. Don't wait to find out. You waited 4 hours in line. You waited 2 hours in line, and suddenly you get to the front and they say, you're not registered here. And then they give you one of those provisional ballots.
No good. Forget it.
Kiss
Yeah.
away your vote.
Well, Greg, so what's next with you? I understand you're doing a whole lot of new work throughout the country. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be working with the National Bar Association, which is the African American Lawyers Guild, and we're going to be going around the country. I'm working with a lot of groups, obviously Latasha Brown, Black Voters Matter, etc. And it would be, if you know what, you never know. I mean, we also got a call from some woman named Kamala Harris, who I don't know who she is, but we took down her number, and so, hey, we might actually have someone in the White House who will actually listen to the issue of what happened to the black vote. And
when you're doing that, I've got first dibs. I'm already claiming the first dibs.
Okay.
But
anyway,
now you're still working with Stacey Abrams, right?
Well, I don't know what Stacey's going to be up to after this election. I suspect that she's going to be
on the cabinet
race for governor.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful to see. She's really quite brilliant, really quite dedicated. What a terrific choice for the cabinet. That's not being partisan. That's just saying there's a great person out there who should be in anyone's cabinet. I'm sure Trump would have appointed her if he got reelected.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Greg, look, I appreciate you coming on again to give us an update of what's going on now. Last question, and I promise this is the last one. What is Trump going to do to try to stay in power, or can he?
He can. I'm sorry. I got to tell you this. And there's a little video on my site about this, about 3 constitutional ways that Trump can still steal the election. He is working very hard now to get the state legislature of Pennsylvania not to certify the vote. Say, oh, there's so much fraud, we couldn't observe the vote, blah, blah, blah. The mail-in ballots came from Mars, according to Donnie Jr. Trump Jr. went to Philadelphia, said the ballots came from Mars. I can tell him that's not possible. I checked. They don't sell stamps on Mars. You can't mail in your ballot from there. But if Pennsylvania does not certify their vote, and let's say which is a Republican-controlled legislature under Article 2 of the Constitution, I'm sorry, that's their choice. It doesn't matter what the voters say. Same thing if they go to Arizona or Michigan and get one of those states to say, we're not going to certify the vote. So what happened? Because there's just too many problems. We can't figure it out in time. So what happens then? Trump doesn't get 270 votes. He doesn't win. Either does Biden. Then it goes to the House of Representatives.
And that's
at the
one
House
vote
of
per
Representatives,
state.
It's one state, one vote.
Which they have the majority of the states.
They have the majority of delegations. So presumably, Donald Trump could then be reelected constitutionally. But he has to convince one, or it may be 2 legislatures, depending on the electoral count.
But that immediately that starts. I postulated that with earlier today, and I said at that point, though, it will be civil war, because I don't think that is going to accept that. Nobody's going to accept consecutive popular votes by millions, and somehow, even after winning the electoral college, you still lose. That is civil war.
Well, let's hope not.
I hope not as well. I hope
Okay.
not as well, but I can almost guarantee you that people are going to start. That is when people are going to really look into that possibility.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that would happen, but I have put gallons of drinkable water and
In your basement.
crackers in my basement.
Greg Palast. Greg Palast is known for his investigative reports for BBC, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone. His bestseller includes The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Get it? Actually, you know what? They can get it at my site, but they can also get it at gregpalast.com. Folks, Greg, it's been my honor, my pleasure to have you here once again, my friend.
You're the best, Egberto. Peace.
Peace. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, I'm so sorry for the problem with the sync. We'll see. I don't know what it is. Sometimes it syncs, sometimes it doesn't. I think that may be out in the ethos. Not sure. Anyhow, folks, thank you so kindly for having been here. Let me call out my people. John Cotter, welcome. Linda E, Nanette Bird Smith, Bridge MCP, Mike Cisak, Ian James Chapman. Let's see. Para ver, Tank 28. As I go up the list, Blair Halfley, Linda E. Welcome aboard. Nanette Bird Smith. Lawrence Sims. Haven't seen you in a couple days, Lawrence. Let's see. Linda, I got Linda E already. Going up the list, folks. Wow, it's a lot of messages in here today. So if I miss you, forgive me. If I miss you, forgive me. Okay, Norman Reynolds, welcome aboard, my brother. I think I got Blair Halfley. Oh, continuing up the list, Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. Going up, Mark Smith, welcome aboard. Who else is here? Scrolling up the board, going up the board. As I think I got Nanette Ashley, my daughter, that is. Let's see who else is here. Who else is here? Who else is here? A lot of folks. If I miss you, just drop me a line and I'll call you out. I like to call out everybody. I like to call out everybody that gives us the honor of chatting. It's just great. You know, I think I'm almost at the top of the list now, which probably means my eye missed a whole bunch. But I'm so sorry. I'm going to go down one thing. I think I saw Moses in there. Yeah, I think I saw. Yeah, there we go. Cheryl Moses, welcome aboard. Continuing down, continuing down, continuing down. Okay, let me go to the bottom and see if anybody else added, and then we'll continue with the show. Blair Halfleg. Okay, folks. I had, since I had my daughter on talking about healthcare, and, healthcare is going to be big, big, big in this cycle, right? Because we have COVID, we have the healthcare prices going through the roof, we have people without jobs. I want you to hear what this congressman had to say about Republicans and healthcare, because none of it has changed thus far.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You may recall that a few weeks ago, President Obama came to this chamber and he addressed the chamber on health care before a joint session of the House and the Senate. During that session, I was privileged to be here, and I saw my colleagues on the far side of the aisle, the Republicans, waving pieces of paper during his speech. And I was wondering what they were. I couldn't imagine. It almost seemed like they wanted President Obama's autograph. I just didn't get it. I heard from one of my colleagues that this is what they called the Republican health care plan. I went over after the speech was over. I picked up a copy that was lying down on the Republican side, and it turns out that the Republicans' health care plan was a blank piece of paper. I inquired further, trying to find out exactly what the Republicans' health care plan is, and it's my duty and pride tonight to be able to announce exactly what the Republicans plan to do for health care in America. It's this. Very simply, it's a very simple plan. The Republicans' health care plan for America: don't get sick. That's right, don't get sick. If you have insurance, don't get sick. If you don't have insurance, don't get sick. If you're sick, don't get sick. Just don't get sick. That's what the Republicans have in mind for you, America. That's the Republicans' health care plan. But I think that the Republicans understand that that plan isn't always going to work. It's not a foolproof plan. So the Republicans have a backup plan in case you do get sick. If you get sick in America, this is what the Republicans want you to do. If you get sick, America, the Republican health care plan is this: die quickly. That's right. The Republicans want you to die quickly if you get sick. Now, the Democrats have a different plan. The Democrats say that if you have health insurance, we're going to make it better. If you don't have health insurance, we're going to provide it to you. If you can't afford health insurance, then we'll help you to afford health insurance. So America gets to decide. Do you want the Democratic plan or do you want the Republican plan? Remember, the Republican plan: don't get sick. And if you do get sick, die quickly.
And if you do get sick, die quickly. Well, it's that time of the day, folks. Please, please, please. I forgot to do it at the halfway point of the show. If you can, please go ahead. If you're on YouTube, please go ahead and click that join button. Become a part of our family. Click join. That is how you help us continue to do what we have the ability to do. Likewise, if you're on YouTube, you see that tray down there with all our T-shirts, face masks, cups, hoodies, all that good stuff with Politics Done Right on it. I support Politics Done Right. All that good stuff is right there. To get our book, you can go ahead and get our book. It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. I'm putting that link, that Amazon link in the feed right now. Please consider getting that book. That feed is in there right now. You can also, if you're on some other thing other than Facebook, or rather, other than YouTube, you can go ahead and still subscribe to our YouTube channel by going to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. That again is politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Of course, we support. You can support us as well at politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. 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 And you know, good old PayPal. It's always a stalwart to support your programming that you like. politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. Now, if you don't use our store on YouTube, you can use our own store here where you can get our books. And if you buy our book on YouTube, or rather on our store, we will go ahead and sign the book from here and give you a bumper sticker or something in there as well. And that is politicsdoneright.com/store. politicsdoneright.com/store. Look, thank you so kindly, folks, for having been here, for having spent this time with me. I couldn't do it without you. You empower me to continue doing what we do, fill in the internet with the progressive message, not only with the show, but also with the hey, you got your mask. I'm glad you got your mask, Bridge MCP. Bridge MCP got that mask that says, Politics Done Right, I support independent media. Thank you so kindly for doing that, Bridge MCP. Again, folks, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/store to get our stuff, or you can, if you're on YouTube, you can just go ahead and look at the tray down there and see all the t-shirts and cups and all that kind of stuff that we have. Look, my name is Egberto Willies. I thank you so kindly for being here. I know that you have places you could be, that you spent this time with me here. It feels good to know that we are making a difference. And notice I said we. Your presence here multiplies what we are able to do. So I thank you so kindly. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And guess what? We are what? Out. And that didn't work. We are out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.